Welcome to another episode of Breaking into Cybersecurity. Today we have Craig Taylor, who's the CEO of Cyberhoot, and he's welcomed here to share his journey into breaking into cybersecurity. He's known for being a virtual CISO, a cybersecurity awareness advisor, and he really brings the community together because outside of today's recording session today, I know we've come together on several different sessions with other similar CISOs or fractional CISOs, and we talk about the different ways that the market is evolving and how do we tackle certain threats in the sector and how we go about doing that. So he really does a lot for the community. And when I had the opportunity to bring him onto the show, I really wanted to take advantage of that. So with that, I will let him finish the rest of his introduction. Craig, how did you tell us about yourself and how you got into cybersecurity just to begin with?
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Yes, I do try to make a little bit of a difference in the cybersecurity community to try and give back a little bit. I've been very fortunate in my career to have some amazing experiences and to be able to share a little bit with our CISO peer group and to give back in those ways. It's very fulfilling for me. To answer your question, I have to go back 30 years to when I got a psychology degree in college up in Canada. I studied operant conditioning and how people learn, what motivates them to learn, what creates behavior change. One of the things that fascinated me all those years ago was a slot machine is the most powerful behavior modification device on the planet. It's an intermittent reward schedule. So it creates this enormous desire in those people to pull the lever and put another nickel in. And hopefully the next pull will give them a great big reward and an endorphin rush. That's a reward based system that changes behaviors. And unfortunately, it can be very addictive, as can drugs of abuse and other things. But if you have to fast forward 20 years from that psychology degree, during which time I was a cybersecurity professional. I started out with a firewall vendor in the early days of the internet before there was even a World Wide Web, Chris. I'm going way back to 1997, 96 timeframe. And people were just getting started on the internet, and we were convincing people to put a firewall in place when they plugged into the internet as we knew it then. Got my CISSP in 2001 and have been doing cybersecurity ever since. Some Fortune 500 companies like JP Morgan Chase, Vistaprint, and Computer Sciences Corporation, where we built cybersecurity programs to help secure the clients and their data in those environments. About 10 years ago, I had a difficult experience at one of my jobs. I was terminated, not for cause so much as the job was in competition with another individual, another CISO in the bank. And they were handpicked by the local VP of that banking division. And I was handpicked by the corporate mothership. And for 18 months, we battled it out to try and help build cyber program collaboratively. But ultimately, there was only one position in the final analysis, and I didn't get it. I should also say that my boss, who hired me at the corporate office, didn't even make my first day on the job. He left before I even started. So there was very little support at the corporate level for me. But be it that as it may, it led to one of the best decisions of my life, which was to found my company, Cyberhoot. And we struggled a bit. We were going to try and help the small to medium-sized business teach cyber literacy or cybersecurity skills to their employees. Because let's face it, in the corporate world that I lived in for 20 years, we were doing videos and training and interactive stuff for the last 20 years. And it was really important to my education and to all of the employees in those businesses. But it was very cumbersome, very time consuming, very difficult. And it was enterprise focused. The small to medium sized businesses didn't have a solution for them. So we started out trying to solve that with policies, governance policies, think password policy and that sort of thing. And we added videos, and that was good. But where we really found our niche was in phishing. And that's where we use my psychology background with education, a focus on education, because that's what we are, an LMS, and cybersecurity. If you put those three circles together, the center is what Cyberhoot is today. It's summarized as positive reinforcement of the good behaviors we want employees all over the world to do more of, rather than the industry focus, which is almost entirely on punishing bad behaviors to reduce them. People clicking on links they shouldn't. It's a very noble goal to stop that. But how you do it is very misaligned in the cybersecurity industry. And so that's where we've accelerated. We use rewards and gamification and a bunch of interesting things to actually engage employees, because they disengage so frequently when they're punished for bad behaviors. That's how I got to here from 20, 30 years ago in cybersecurity.
So a lot has changed in the past 20, 30 years. And I would say one of the major changes today is the advancement of AI within the landscape.
Oh,
How
yes.
does the advancement of AI both help and hinder in this enablement of helping users both be aware of the changing threats, but also not click on them, not fall for them, not be sucked into them?
I would say AI is going to be the great disruptor of our lives. Whatever we've been through in the past from a disruption standpoint, let's say COVID and working remote, or before that, digital transformations, taking all of our data and our applications from on-premise to the cloud. All of those changes, even the advent of the internet, believe it or not, are going to pale in comparison to what AI is going to change the world around us. Just today, Chris, I read about Amazon saying, if you can't prove your use of AI to your leadership at Amazon, no promotion for you. In fact, they might be showing you the door. AI, getting to know AI and learning how to use it is pivotal to everyone's future in this world, if I had to say. Now, to your specific question of how does it help and hinder from a cybersecurity, from a threats perspective, on the helpful side, AI is super great at teasing needles out of haystacks. It could do it all day long. So if you're running a SOC, Security Operations Center, and you want to identify the very critical triggers that indicate a potential threat or the beginnings of an exposure or an attack, you can have AI pouring through terabytes of data and teasing it out, and is very good at that. You can use AI to help modify malware detection tools. If you have samples, you can say, okay, we need to update our signatures. We need to update our heuristics on behavioral analysis of these bits of malware, and write new signatures for my intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, XDR, which is extended detection and response on desktops and workstations and that sort of thing. It's very good at that. And some of the tools out there are starting to build in AI discovery tools to help us identify when we're under attack and those sorts of things. So that's really on the helpful side. Coding, it can help us code new applications faster than, say, the traditional method. I'm not 100% certain it's going to do it in the most elegant code. That's something I haven't determined yet. If the code written is more brute forcing it, or is it elegant code? That's something I'm not sure about. On the detraction side, on the challenges we face side, phishing attacks, no matter your language of source or origin, if you're a Chinese speaker and you want to attack a US-based individual and you have access to their social media, AI can create 10, 20, 30 spear phishing attacks that you are interested in clicking on. Not just, oh, I think because he or she is in the US, they're familiar with Adobe and they're familiar with Bank of America. No, I'm not talking about that level of pointed phishing attack. I'm saying your social media talks about you had a dog that had an accident and there was an enormous vet bill and you complained one time in the last 10 years about that. You're going to get a veterinary apology email that if you click on the link, it's going to compromise you, or it's going to lead you to a credential theft website, or it's going to entice you to really want to click on that link. And it'll look almost identical to your veterinary that you talked about on X or social media. So spear phishing attacks are becoming much more personalized, perfect spelling, punctuation, and grammar, regardless of the language of origin of the attacker. All of those things are game changers. You have a 0-day that's in a product. Today, we're talking about SharePoint. Over the weekend, there was a 0-day in SharePoint, and it was being exploited in the wild.
SharePoint on-premise. We should
On-premise,
really
yes.
point that out.
On-premise SharePoint, not the O365 version. That's exactly right. And if you turned on some of the security features, you had some modicum of protection as well. However, having said that, AI could say there's a vulnerability in SharePoint for this component. You can use an AI agent to go try to develop an exploit for that if you don't have the coding skills. Now, there's a lot more nuances to that, but it is possible. And hacking organizations are turning to AI to help them code if they don't have the skill sets themselves. So those are happening. On the data privacy front, AI is breaking all the rules with a number of different potential risks. I am working on a privacy analyzer website, Chris, you can take the Fireflies, AI, the Falcon, or any of these digital assistants that join your Teams Zoom meetings, your Google Meet meetings, and record action items and the dialogue. And I'm telling you this very plain English. They are selling that data to the highest bidder and making money that way, especially if your tool is free. Check the privacy terms because they couch it in the phrase of, to improve services, we will share your content with third parties to improve services. That's code for selling it so they can steal data from it. I think I said to you in the peer group, the little thought process I went through the other day. I said, how long would it take me to be a millionaire, to turn $150,000 into $1 million if I could launch my own Fireflies.ai digital assistant? How many meetings would it have to attend for me to write a purpose-built insider trading, sell short or buy long for this vendor or that vendor based on inside information I could get out of those meetings? And it said a year at most. Could I turn $150,000 into $1 million just by mining no more than 5,000 meetings and being able to buy and sell stock based on the insider information that's discussed on those things? It took about 10 years, it said, for me to become a billionaire. But this stuff could already be happening, right? We just don't know. And people, companies, small and large, are really freaking out about privacy and the data that's being talked about on meetings like this and being put into public LLMs without your knowledge and without permission. And it's being mined, or it's being shared, or it's breaching the privacy regulations around HIPAA, healthcare, and that sort of thing. I was this morning at my physical therapy appointment, Chris. I had knee surgery not too long ago. So anyone wants to send me a phishing email, use knee surgery, I promise you I will not click. But the woman, there was an intern there going over my data entry from the PT therapist I had been working on. He's a doctorate of physical therapy. And she goes, "Oh my God, your notes are perfect on this patient. They're just so well crafted." He goes, "That's the beauty of AI." And I went, "Oh, how are you using AI on my medical records? And where is it coming from?" He reassured me it's coming from the software application vendor. They've built in a private LLM on a closed system so that none of the data is contributed to the public LLM, but it's built in to help them write notes. So you say, he worked on his right knee, he did stretching exercise, he did a weight bearing exercise, blah, blah, blah. Write that into a beautiful paragraph and boom, it does it for him. So saving time and money and effort is a beautiful thing if you respect the privacy of the data. So there are the positives and negatives, and I've just scratched the surface. There's lots of other potential far-reaching implications of AI.
I definitely hear you on that. And one of the responsibilities for my core employer is I support an organization that does just that. They have a transcription service that they built a high trust certified transcription tool that uses an internal transcription service to transcribe the notes and then to put them into medical records as a service so that
Yep.
the doctors don't have to sit there and type out all their patient notes. They can
Wow.
transcribe it and put it into a medical record. And it doesn't send back that transcription to the third party LLM. It simply uses that service input, get the output, refine, put it in the record. And as I help this organization with their maturity, like that's one of the things I'm talking about. Okay, so we have this here. How are we looking to improve and continuously improve our process and privacy concerns, international organizations, things like that? That's definitely something that there's customer service organizations that do this, banking organizations that do this, healthcare organizations that do this. And that's outside of your general note taking organizations that do this. And it makes you wonder, how prepared are organizations from a data governance perspective to understand the data and the identity of all their data and all their human and non-human identities to try to protect their data from agentic and AI models being used in their organization, whether it be a plugin, an invitation to a meeting, those sorts of things, from your
Absolutely.
perspective.
They're not prepared. We took the first steps about 2 years ago. We updated our AUP template on our platform at Cyberhoot. And we said, here's some rules for employees to be aware of when looking to adopt and use AI tools. I said, first, get permission from your IT team, your CISO, your senior leadership before you start using something. Because an average user is not going to read a EULA or a privacy policy to realize all of our data is being sold to third parties. Okay, that's a problem. And yet, even when I host my vCISO peer group meeting, I have to kick out 3 or 4 different AI bots that want to join, sometimes without their host, right? Without the person behind them, because they're just automatically joining every meeting so that they get a summary of the discussion, not knowing the difficulty that some of their privacy policies have. So that was 2 years ago, but there's been so much change since that time. Public versus private LLMs. There was a lot of folks were trying to use Copilot from Microsoft because it claimed to not ingest any of the discussion topics or data that you put into your Microsoft 365 tenancy and Copilot. But then we learned about 3-4 months ago that there was some ways that leakage occurs. They fixed it. But at that point, just like our social security numbers here in the US and our home addresses and our salaries and all of our identity information has been breached multiple times by Expedient and all the different credit agencies. The NPD breach last fall, my social was in there 8 times for different residents that I'd lived at. It's all out there already. So with AI, we're just putting more data into the public LLM, and you need to provide some really strong language around that with your employees. You need to, I don't think fear is the way for any of this, but if you could explain the how and the why, people are much more interested in protecting their private data when you explain how and why, rather than just threaten them with firing. If you use an AI agent and you'll get fired without permission, that just doesn't cut it anymore. People are not children to be scolded. They need to be educated.
So that's from the user level. How do you communicate this at the risk level for business leaders to make risk-based decisions for their organization?
For that, you need your advanced virtual CISO to go through the NIST. There are some new documents from NIST that talk about the various categories of threats we face from AI. Everything from bias in the answers to AI. AI was trained on data. That data has biases depending on where it came from. And many times that's a Western liberal democracy bias or a white liberal democracy. There was a news article, Chris, I read about a year and a half ago when Clearview AI, which is this visual inspection software that says, oh, show me a picture and I'll tell you who it is. It'll search the entire internet for images on social media and everywhere else, and it'll identify that person. It worked great for white Anglo-Saxon males. Black individuals, not so much, which is unfortunately some of the police systems that were using it to identify were misidentifying people because it couldn't distinguish between one Black person from another. And they said, it's good enough, right? No, it's not. So there's bias, inherent biases in the systems based on the data we use to train it. There are other risks as well, but the NIST guidelines on that, they put together, I think it's an interim document for the threats from AI. And I would suggest you read through those different categories and bring them to your senior leadership to say, it applies to us, it doesn't apply. It applies, it doesn't apply. And then come up with mitigated controls around those items.
Yes, NIST has a AI RMF assessment that you could do both from a risk management as well as a security process. HITRUST has one from their perspective, and then ISO has one from their perspective as well. 4200 series or 42,000 series is the one from the ISO perspective, but then there's sublaying controls on that. But yes, it's quickly evolving, and you're right. There's underlying bias in the data that I think a lot of folks say AI like cloud computing. It's a vague, generic term that you're just going to say, hey, let's throw it in the cloud and hope that it will magically optimize itself and reduce cost and make things a lot easier and more secure. Well,
right.
Yes, it was designed for all these use cases, but it still needs to be implemented in a strategic to achieve these use cases. Same
Right.
thing for AI. There's many different AI tools and ways that it has to be designed, implemented, tested, and validated for it to achieve those use cases.
I think my take home message for anyone listening to this is that you have to get on the AI bus. You can't be left behind here. The bus is going to leave the station. And if you're not on it, you're going to miss out. Your job could be at risk. As I referenced, Amazon's CEO said, if you can't prove you know how to use AI, you don't get a promotion here. But that's one step away from the next decision, which is you no longer have a job here. I heard about a few weeks ago, a very large IT provider laid off almost their 50 to 60% of their frontline support engineers in favor of an AI solution that they put in place. So things are changing, and they're going to change even more quickly as the time goes over the next 6 to 12 months. So get on that bus, but make yourself aware of the risks that you face. Do the self-assessment from NIST. The RMF stands for Risk Management Framework, and understand the risks that you're up against so that when you consult with a business as their CISO or their junior security engineer, you can talk competently about these threats that you face. Some won't apply to your business, others will. And be particularly careful when you have regulated data, critical and sensitive data with AI use.
Another question for you from an awareness perspective. How do you help organizations that may vary in scale with applying the right level of awareness, the right level of control, depending on their size, that's just right for them?
When you speak about awareness, do you mean general cybersecurity awareness, cyber literacy skills, or do you mean something specific to AI in our earlier conversation?
Both.
Both.
Risk-based awareness, general cyber awareness, password management awareness.
All of that. It boils down to my early comments in this interview about positive reinforcement, we're seeing record levels of disengagement, commonly called apathy, right? My employees are apathetic. They don't want to do their training. They don't want to do this. Why? Why is that? Because you've been punishing them for things they don't know rather than teaching them the things they need to know. And if you can use a positive reinforcement method with gamification and reward system, not huge rewards, don't outsize rewards like a weekend away for the person that completes their assignments first. No, we're talking small rewards to get engagement started. Once people realize they can learn this stuff, it's not rocket science, whether it's awareness training or AI prompts or anything that's been mentioned here, a password manager. I will tell you, I have asked and convinced dozens of people to adopt a password manager. And to a person, they go through an arc of, I hate Craig for making me adopt this tool, to, so frustrating, but I see some value in this, to, oh my God, I'm starting to get it. And this thing is the best thing since sliced bread, all the way to, I can't live without this tool. Oh my God, I worked a decade without a password manager. How stupid, how foolish of me. I should have done it so much sooner. To a person, that's the arc. Now, that can take a month, it could take 3 months, it could take a week. But to a person, whether you're young, old, medium, people, once they understand the utility of a password manager, swear by it, especially when they can stick their pass keys into it, which is the newest and best way to identify yourself, your identity online, is by adopting pass keys. So that's important, to reward those good behaviors. If you just punish people, if you don't do your training, you don't get your bonus, or if you don't do your training, you'll have to come to a Saturday 1-hour meeting and webinar, and we'll teach you manually. That is punishment-based theory, and it causes further disengagement. It actually causes your good employees to leave and your bad employees who can't get another job somewhere else to hang around, and your company just get reduced in its capabilities and its productivity.
So it sounds like you have to build this into your organizational change management approach so it becomes part of your culture to have this positive reinforcement.
Yes. Yes. It's not rocket science either. Think about parenting, for example. If a child's having a temper tantrum, do you yell at them to make them stop, or do you take them aside and say, tell me what's got you so upset? And yes, I would be upset if your brother took my toy too and didn't let me play with it. But what can we do differently? Maybe you can work with your brother to share that toy for a little while and teach coping skills so that the next time there's a challenging situation, if you just yelled at your child, they're going to have another temper tantrum. But if you taught them coping skills, the good behaviors you want to see more of, guess what? That's self-rewarding, because guess what? Now they get to have a little bit of reward, maybe not as much as they wanted, but they get something. So it reinforces the good behaviors, and off to the races. Dog training, same thing. Incarcerated adults, same thing. Everywhere you look in the world, if you use positive reinforcement for the good behaviors you want to see more of, guess what? More of the good behaviors, less of the bad ones that you want to get rid of. In law enforcement, there is this fallacy that I don't want to get into that area. That's a little too challenging, like the death penalty and that sort of thing. There's a lot of folks that say it has no value. I don't think that's appropriate here, but the punishments that come with committing crimes is not truly an effective deterrent. People are going to do those things whether you make it a crime or not. But once you're caught and you're incarcerated, if we can teach you better behaviors, coping skills, a job that you can, when you get released from prison, you can go and have some skills to complete a job and work in an industry where you feel like you can be valuable to society, then you're going to reduce recidivism. There's lots of studies out there proving this, right? So the idea has to be, even in psychology and cybersecurity, which doesn't seem to get this yet, there's this course correction the whole cybersecurity realm needs to take, from punishing bad behaviors to rewarding good behaviors. It's that simple. No matter what you do in your programs, do it that way.
Yeah, I've been working with the leaders that I advise to step away from being that department of no and going, okay, I can help you implement this control. I can help you minimize this risk, but you're the risk owner. You're the one that has to tell me why this is a risk and how you want me to minimize this risk. And I can help advise you on how to do. And we as a leadership team can make this decision, but it's not just security that is making this decision. It's us as a leadership team. And that way, when it's communicated from the top that this is a strategic approach, it's not, and it's communicated down, then your users, your stakeholders then start to see, okay, this is important, this is part of the culture, and it's not just, oh, this is the policy, but no one follows it.
I see it time and again. You're absolutely right. If people recognize that IT and cybersecurity are not the department of no, they're the actual enablers, then you stand a chance of being invited to the table for the new project discussion on day one, not brought in at the 11th hour when it's too late to change course and they've chosen a bunch of bad decisions to make things insecure. That's too late. Then you have to be the department of no. But if you're welcomed in early, you can help course correct a little bit in small increments that are relatively benign and enable those projects to be successful with security from the beginning. I see this many times. People have said, no printing at home. The remote workforce, they can't print at home. So guess what? People email themselves on their personal emails and then they can print at home, right? What have we just done? We've just ruined the system, and the privacy of that data is just out there in Google Mail and all these other places. That's not a workable solution. So maybe set them up with a dedicated printer that only connects to your laptop that you can't print anywhere else, but you can print there. And then give them a shredder so they can shred it at home so that it's not sitting on their desk or in the recycling bin at the curb of the street for dumpster divers, whatever.
Or implement a data governance policy and choose what can and can't be printed at home based on the sensitivity to the organization. If it's a TPS report that doesn't contain any highly sensitive information, but you just need it for your manual project tracking records, that might be one thing versus a bunch of social security numbers and PCI DSS information. Probably not so much, but
right.
We're approaching the end of our half hour, and I always like to ask one last question.
Sure.
Any tips and tricks for someone looking to follow in your path that you would like to share with them as we go?
Tips and tricks to follow in the cybersecurity path. I would say this. Cybersecurity is going to play heavily in the AI revolution that we're facing. So if you want some job security, learn AI and learn cybersecurity because you'll have a little bit of job security. It's difficult to outsource some of the cyber work that we do to AI. Some of it, yes, you can. And it's probably no different in a lot of other fields, but pay close attention and enter the field of cybersecurity for a reasonable living wage, for contribution to society. Everybody works on computers today. Everybody works with email. And becoming cyber literate is a job skill that every job requires. If you've got an email address at a company, you need cyber literacy skills. So teach yourself some cyber literacy. You can go to my company's website and learn for free. May I give that URL, Chris?
Absolutely. And we'll include it in the show notes.
Sure. So go to cyberhoot.com/individuals and you'll get our corporate program sent to you as a single person on teaching you about phishing, password management, password managers, hygiene, Wi-Fi security, USB stick security. The whole gamut of cybersecurity topics will be delivered to you in 5-minute increments once a month. And our Hootfish positive phishing simulation that rewards you learning the rubric of how phishing works so you can easily, confidently, and efficiently identify phishing attacks in your inbox without anxiety. Isn't that a beautiful thing? If you could be empowered to do that and never fall for another phishing attack, it's a beautiful thing. And it's all free for you at our website, cyberhoot.com/individuals. Hope being you'll bring it to your company. If you liked it, maybe your IT department wants to roll it out to everybody. That's the loss leader anyways. That's the hope.
Who doesn't like free?
Yeah.
Craig, Thank you so much for joining us today, and looking forward to interviewing more leaders like yourself who want to give an impact and share with the cybersecurity community on how they broke into cybersecurity. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.